Hey Facebook gang, it's Bob. I am bringing you Positive Vibes session number 50 today. And today's lesson is about, it's actually one of 8 that I'll do over the next several days. And it is to explain the fourth noble truth that the Buddha taught. The first 3 being that suffering is a universal condition of sentient beings. The second is that desire is the cause of that suffering. The third noble truth being that the cessation of that desire, or the ceasing of the desire, is the ceasing of suffering. And then the fourth noble truth is that the Eightfold Path, right? So the way out of that. And this is the first of those 8. The first being right view. Right view ends up being a multi-level stepping stone to understanding the paths, broken down into 3 categories. So there's sort of the mundane, the super mundane, and then the sort of the third level, and I forget exactly what it's called, but essentially the mundane right view is to accept, sort of on faith, that karma and rebirth are real things, right? So that karma as a law working in the world exists, that your actions have consequences, and the rebirth, that we go through this process of birth, sickness, old age, death, and ultimately rebirth. The second layer is a bit more, less taken on faith and more as a result of practice. So once taken on faith, at least enough faith to put you on the path and to start practicing the other parts of the Eightfold Path, and you start experiencing the actual results of karma. You start to understand it more deeply. You start to understand through mindfulness and other things, just the inner workings of karma, the inner workings of rebirth, on a very small scale as well as a very large scale. And then ultimately perceiving those truths leads to the right view, the informed, sort of pseudo-enlightened view. But it also, at the same time, there's something counterintuitive going on, which is the Buddhist path, the teachings and all of the things that the Buddha gave and that people practice in order to progress along the path of enlightenment, to get sort of better at understanding our suffering and stopping it, ultimately results in the third layer of right view, which is the sort of the transcendent right view, which is realizing that once you've gotten that far in the path, once you've trained so hard on that path and understand it so intimately, ultimately you have to give up the path, that you understand that even clinging to the path itself, clinging to the teachings themselves, are a form of clinging or a form of desire that still results in suffering, that still has the fruits born in karma and rebirth. And so that's right view. That's a pretty quick and dirty explanation, but ultimately means having the right understanding, the right vision, the right ability to see things as they really are, as described by the Buddha through his teachings on karma and rebirth. Ultimately creating the desire, the mental desire to want to progress on the path, to get better at mindfulness, meditation, compassion, love, to be able to give up the fetters that weigh us down, and ultimately try to progress on a path of more like purity, more like transcendence, trying to attain enlightenment. So taken on faith, to start with an enthused and excited mind to learn, ultimately transcending to one that understands more deeply the teachings as they've been taught and practiced and actually experienced in one's life, and then ultimately resulting in the view that even those things you have to let go. And I'll use the story often told when somebody has to cross a river and they find a raft, a very heavy raft, a sturdy raft that will get them across to the other side. Once they've used that raft to cross to the other shore, the other shore being sort of transcendence, or moving from the mundane right view and taking on faith that the raft is going to get you to the other side. Once you've reached the other side, what use is the raft at that point? It doesn't make sense to carry it around, dragging it with you just in case you happen to hit another river. doesn't make a lot of sense, and that ultimately becomes the metaphor for letting go of the raft, the teachings of Buddhism, letting those go so that you can transition to the ultimate transcendence, the ultimate enlightenment. So that's the first stage, right view of the Eightfold Path. So each of the following positive vibe sesh, I'll give you 51 through 57, I guess, will be the remainder of the Eightfold Path. So for those of you who just want to learn a little bit more about it, this is your entry. So I hope you all love one another. I hope you teach and inspire each other every day, and that you express gratitude for one thing for which you're grateful. Cheers.